Hey folks, my name is Ravish and welcome back to another video in the series of DevOps Interviews. Now, today's video is very special because it is being interviewed for a person who would work as a lead DevOps engineer and must have 5 to 6 years or more experience on DevOps and cloud. So this lead DevOps engineer position was for a person who must have information on Azure cloud, especially in this interview, and Azure DevOps, GitHub, and Terraform as well. So the questions that you would be listening in this interview would be on Terraform, second Azure DevOps, GitHub, and a few questions on as a scenario based and like on data source, a few on dynamic blocks, more heavy centric towards the Terraform part. All right. So I would advise that take a piece of paper and pen with you. Just write down the questions because these interviews can be easily you can easily combat with these kind of questions if you already have the answers to. All right, so please take a piece of paper and a pen and note them down. All right, so before moving further in this video, I would like to request that if you're new over here, kindly subscribe the channel because it helps me to create more content like this. And if you are a returning subscriber, then please hit the like button because it will help me a lot. All right, so without further ado, let's get started.
So, what type of role you are working on exactly at your current project as a consultant?
Okay, so just 2 months back, I was changed to a different project. The last 3 years I've dedicated to a project which was entirely on AWS, and there were a few things that I was taking a look into. There was a merger for one company which was on Azure. So I used to look at 3 accounts. So I'll just brief down one by one. So first account was on the on-prem system. They had their own data centers, and what they used to do is they used to use TeamCity as a CI tool, and then Octopus Deploy as a deployment tool. So these two were the things that were mainly used. Most of the code was on C#, and the first project I got was on Java. So the CI/CD whole pipeline from scratch I wrote over there. The security principles, everything, I took care of that. That was one thing. The other thing was on AWS DevOps, entirely on AWS DevOps. The infrastructure was on AWS DevOps, and AWS DevOps means the code build, code pipeline, all those 4 components, code commit, all those 4 components, and the build used to go through there. So that was the second thing that I was looking into. And the third thing I was looking into was on Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is the third project, which was a merger, which I just mentioned a few minutes back. So this project was Azure DevOps plus Azure. The Azure DevOps was having our Terraform scripts that used to create the infrastructure. They were using release pipelines and build pipelines, and then the infrastructure used to create on Azure. So this is a brief idea of the 3 projects that I was looking into.
Okay, thank you. So since you have worked on the infrastructure part, have you used Terraform also to create this infrastructure?
Yes, Terraform as well, yes.
Okay, fine. So can you rate yourself with the Terraform, how much confident you are?
Let's say 6 to 7 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, okay, fine. So can you let me know what is a state file and when it is created?
Okay, so state file is basically, I'll quote an example for it. For example, you create some infrastructure on the any public cloud. Let's say we use AWS, and when you try to create the infrastructure, what happens is, let us consider an example of 10 VMs. So if we are going to create 10 VMs, and the state file holds the metadata for all these 10 VMs that are going to be created. Now what happens is, let's say if something happens in the course of creation of these VMs, let's say 5 VMs, and then something goes wrong and those 5 VMs are not created, the state file will have all the information that my 5 VMs are created and 5 VMs are not created. Now this state file is the only place that would be that would take care when the next time you run the Terraform apply, because it's going to read the metadata from state file that 5 VMs are created, and then 5 you have to create extra. So this is the basic function of state file. Basically, it stores the metadata for your infrastructure, and I think
where it is stored.
I mean, depends where you can store it. So if
For
you are
example, if we are storing it in Azure storage account, for example, and then how we are storing it in the Azure DevOps, sorry, Azure storage account, if I need to store it there.
okay. So like as I said, there are two ways to do it. You can do it on-prem or you can do it on any public cloud. So if you're using AWS, then you can go for S3, and if you're using your Azure, then I think you can go for storage account. So from in that blob storage, you can place it over here, and from there you can just link it over here, link it, and once it runs, it makes a call to that state file, takes care of all the data, and then works like that.
Okay. And what should we do to link this from storage account?
Yeah, so first of all, your Azure DevOps need to know that whether your Azure account is making a contact to each other. In order to do that, the first step is to make a service connection. Now, service connection is something that makes a handshake between both these Azure DevOps, which was known as VSTS previously, uh, is like legit, is a legit thing. And then once this service connection is made, every time you run, I have done it through a pipeline. So every time you run a pipeline, it will talk to that account using the service connection, and then it will allow your Azure DevOps to pick that file and then use it in your Terraform.
What is the tent command used for?
Sorry?
Tent command in Terraform.
You mean TAINT, right?
Yes, tent.
Taint command is basically for the tainted resources. I'm not 100% sure right now, so I wouldn't take a chance for that. I do not have 100% knowledge on that right now.
Okay, no issues. Any information on null resource? What is the null resource used for?
Both tainted resource and null resource. I do not have like a kind of working experience on that, so I will pass that.
And what is a module used for?
Yeah.
What is module in Terraform?
Okay, so there are two things when you talk about the modules part. One is only the structure, and second is the keyword. Okay, so I'll just walk through both of them. So the first one is a modular approach. So in this approach, what we do is we create the infrastructure in such a way that you place the folders of same configuration. For example, if I have a lot of security groups that needs to be created, we'll create a file securitygroup.tf, and then we'll place all those stuff over there. And then if you need to create IAM roles, IAM policy or stuff, we'll have a separate file for that. This is a concept of modular approach in terms of directories. This is one thing. The second thing is the module keyword. So the module keyword is the entire ball game altogether. In module keyword, we create child module and a parent module. How this helps us? The main advantage of using module is you reduce a lot of code that you need to use. For example, if you are using security groups and there are 10, let's say you have to create same stuff for 10 clients, you do not have to write every time. You just have to use module keyword. You just give it a name and then give a source. Now this source is the place where you have created the module. So from there, Terraform will automatically link to that place, pick the code from there, and then execute. All you just have to do is you just have to pass the variables and the parameters through the code, and there would be a separate chunk of code. So this is how a module helps us in terms of keyword. The directory structure is different. So this is how module works.
Okay. And what is the data source, and how we can use the data source?
Okay, so data sources, another way of create when you're, for example, when your resource wants some I mean it's some kind of resource only. It uses a data resource as I'm sorry, I cannot recall right now.
Okay, no issues. So what type of resources you have created from Terraform in Azure?
Okay, so let's say if you want to create what I have done is currently what I'll quote an example of what exactly we are doing right now. I'm just trying to make the Azure pipelines create for the AWS infrastructure, and the stuff that I'm doing right now is ECS, the container services. What we are trying to do over here, we are trying to create a cluster, and in those cluster we are creating for our workers. So what exactly workers will do is they'll use either Fargate or they'll use either ECS. So these are the two components that I'm creating right now, and related content for that, like for example, your security groups for your IAM rules and policies and stuff, and yeah, pretty much that what we are doing right now. But yeah, I've created other stuff as well. If you want to know about EC2 and S3 bucket,
Actually,
DNS governance.
I'm more interested in looking forward in Azure portal. So if you can quote an example with respect to Azure, it will be great.
Okay. Um, if you like compare with that, then I think EC2 should be a VM on Azure, and probably the storage areas. I mean, I did it in my last project, the storage account, and if I remember correctly, um, I couldn't recall. But yeah,
Okay.
I've worked on it. Like, if you want to know the concept of it, I can go through it, the
Do you know
approach.
what is no issues. Do you know what is dynamic block and why it is used for?
Dynamic block. Just a moment. I have done something on this. Just give me like 2 minutes. Okay, I'll just give it a try. Like if so, whenever you write some kind of Terraform script and the code, you can use a dynamic block which will make a choice for you. For example, if you have a few things that needs to be taken decision of, you can use that in dynamic block, and whenever the script runs, it will check that condition. In that condition, if it finds that whatever needs to be done, on the basis of that, you can use dynamic block. So this is, I think, what I can recall from what I've done.
Okay. Not sure. Do you mind writing a syntax, simple basic syntax of how you create a resource? For example, you need to create an app service plan for the Azure web app.
See, mostly I go to the Terraform registry and copy the code from there and then make the changes. That's what I do on general basis, but I don't write anything from scratch. That's how it needs to be done. I mean,
Okay.
that's how I
Do
do
you have any idea about the VNet integration, why it is used?
it. VNet integration on like EC2. Are you expect? Or
In Azure.
okay, so like what I can recall from VNet integration is I can give a use case for it. Like if you have a VM and if you have an application that is running on a VM, and you also have a VM in which you have a database. Either you can use separate service for that, or if it's in a VM, then VNet you will use because you don't want your database to be exposed on the public. So what you do is you create separate VNet for that, and then you can use Bastion host through which things can go from one VM to the other VM. The first VM should be your application. The second VM should be of the DB. So these are the two things that they're going to make the call to each other, and that where your VNet integration would come into role, as per my understanding.
Okay. And, what is a service endpoint or a private endpoint?
Um, I cannot recall. Sorry.
Okay, no issues. Have you used application insights
Application insight for the
to
software.
monitor
Yes.
in Azure to monitor resources?
Yes.
Okay, can you write any Crystal query? For example, you need to monitor a performance lagging query.
Um, cannot recall. I'm sorry.
Any idea on the role assignment in Azure? How we can assign any role definition and role assignment?
For a user or for an application, like
For both, if you can, let's say for a user as of now.
okay, so role assignment is something like how much he can how what kind of permissions he has to do anything. So there are multiple roles available on the Azure account, and according to that, a person can perform any action. So that's I think this falls into the category of IAM only.
Okay. And for what in case of the application?
Application also has the same thing, but I think that is taken differently, which I don't remember as any of now. Like it's been a lot of time like since I have done anything on Azure, but if it would have been a bit on AWS, I would have been much more comfortable.
Okay, okay, no issues. Any idea of ADF, data factory?
No, I have not touched Data Factory.
And web services you have worked on, right? App services
App
in
services,
Azure.
yes.
Okay, if you need to troubleshoot for an error like 403 or a 500 internal server error, where you would start your troubleshooting?
Okay, so generally what we have done in that case, we always have log analytics with that. So if you go to the app insights, you'd be able to find like where the problem is coming from. If the app is not coming up, there could be a reason associated with it. For example, if your app is talking to database and the database itself is not up, so it will log it over there, and then you can go inside, take a look over there, and then from that reason you can just fire up the database, and then the application would come up. So this is like what we have done on the basic part.
Any idea on SQL Server? Have you created any SQL Server in Azure or restore any database?
Like I have done migration, restored the database, and yeah, created the database as well, like manually and through scripts as well.
Which instance you have created?
So we went for MySQL.
Okay, and how do you restore it?
Uh, restore, you mean like backup or something?
Yes, yes. For example, there is a backup, default backup created, and you want in some situation the database got crashed and you need to restore it.
Okay.
So which steps you do?
So in that we used a software known as Sketch. It's SQITCH, and what it does it you have to create the SQL queries for that, and then through your pipeline you can connect it, and then you can execute those queries, which will do the work. And depends on the type of backup you want, full backup, differential, or something. And according to that, you can write those queries in using Sketch, and then after that you just have to execute. So it's more of a script work. Why we have done it? Because it gives us more leverage towards the control over the script. So kind of a bit getting independent and not using 100% of the Azure. So that's why that's how and why we have done it.
Okay, you have worked on Azure DevOps and GitHub both, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So, can you know what are custom actions in GitHub?
Custom actions. Cannot recall. Sorry.
And how do you create an environment in GitHub? Multiple environments?
Environments. Like you mean a branch or something?
No, not branch. Environments. Environments is a different concept. For example, we have 2, 3 environments like dev, pre-prod, prod environment.
Yeah, but that's not how we do it. We just have the branching strategies, and depending on that, we write the code in branches. We do not create a separate environment. It's just one block. In that, we create branches, and depending on that, we take the code from GitHub and then execute in our environments, even if dev, QA, or staging or production. We do not create separate environments in GitHub. I actually don't even know that there is something known as environment exists in GitHub. What we just do, we just create the different branches, and if you want, I can walk you through the branching strategies that we generally follow. but that's the only part we take care from GitHub and then execute over the branches. Sorry, execute over the environments. So environment is something that if we use on-prem, then we have to create on on-prem, or if we use on any public cloud, we use there. That's how we do it.
Any idea on the workflows?
How
to write GitHub workflows?
No, I mean, I'm hearing for the first time. I've never heard of it.
Okay. No issues, no issues. So, just a second. What is a variable group used in Azure DevOps?
So variable group is something like, for example, you want to pass parameters in Azure DevOps. Okay, so you can use the code over there, and from there you have to create a variable group, and in that you can give your all your variables that would be used at runtime when you run the application. Sorry, when you run the pipeline, it will be get used from there. So you don't have to maintain it in a separate file or something. You just create a variable group, give variables over there, and it will be used in the runtime.
Okay. Have you encountered any merge conflict?
Yes, multiple times. Yeah.
Okay. How do you resolve that?
Okay, so I see three ways to do it. One is like a basic way is uh, what people generally do is they just copy their code into a separate folder. They take the code, whatever is the new code, and then just carefully compare using Beyond Compare or any online tool, and then they use. That's one way to do it. The other way of doing it, you can squash your code, and after that you can use the changes and then can merge both of them. Third way of doing is accept everything that is coming your way, and then what happens is if your lines is 100 lines of code, if you accept everything, then it can be more like 150 lines of code. After that, when every change in your branch has come, then you can check the code whether it is important or not, and then you can remove it accordingly. That's a manual work. So either of these three approaches can be used.
What are branch policies and approvals?
I think branch policies and approval is a concept through which whenever you which gives an ability to control the check-ins, the merges, and the other operations on GitHub or any platform that use Git. So, for example, if you do any kind of merge and you are sure about it that everything is fine, but there is a need of someone to get into it, take a look at the code, and then approve it. So you can use approvals for that. So could be 2 approvals, 3 approvals, or something, so that people can look into and approve whatever the code that you have written is legit or not.
For example, you are working on something on a branch, and for example, you are working on main branch, and there is some pipeline running, and you need to stop it, and you can't stop that, and you are getting an error message that it is not allowed. So, what would be your strategy to look into that?
Okay, like first of all, never do anything on main branch. It's a bad practice. Always create a
No, actually, it is running, and you need to stop that.
the pipeline.
Yes.
I
Any
think
trigger or any pipeline, if it is running on main branch and you need to stop it for some reasons, and you are not able to stop it, it is not allowing you to do that. It is saying that it is not allowed. So, what could be your first step towards the troubleshooting part?
okay. So like it's kind of a branch question. I'll just start from the very first approach. The first approach would be to go cancel over there. Just a moment. Just a moment. So the first approach would be to cancel it from the UI. And as you are saying that we have already tried that and it's not happening. So second thing which I would go for, whenever there is a Azure pipeline that runs, it runs on an agent. Okay. The great idea is to create your own agents, because that would give you the flexibility, and whatever happens, the process happens over the agent. Go inside the agent, restart the agent, the process will stop.
Okay. Have you written any the pipelines in YAML code?
Yes.
what are the difference between stages and jobs?
Okay, a job is like subpart, is a subset of a stage. A stage can have multiple jobs. So that's how they are related to each other.
Okay. And for example, if we want to deploy on a particular branch, then how we can achieve that?
Whenever you, if you want to do it manually, when you trigger down any application, sorry, any pipeline, it will always ask you that what branch you want to run into. You just click on the drop down. From there, you just have to choose the branch, and then it can run. That's one way of doing it. And the other way of writing in the code itself. So in the start, when it looks for a trigger, there is an option of branch over there. You can mention the branch over there in terms of code. But the best practice is to allow the user to run it. So you can pass it as a parameter, create a parameter. And then once you run it, it'll give you a checkbox, not checkbox, text box. In that text box, you can copy and paste the branch you want to run. And yeah, that would give you flexibility of running it on any branch.
For example, if in the trigger it is mentioned that it should run on main branch as well as your feature branch, and in one job there is a requirement that, for example, in the development environment, it should only be triggered when the feature branch is selected. So how do you restrict it to run the deploy your changes onto that branch?
Okay, can you just repeat the question?
For example, we have multiple environments, right? Dev and production.
Mhm.
So we just wanted that our feature branch changes should be only deployed onto the dev branch and not to the production branch. Then
Mhm.
how do you achieve that in your in this strategy?
The first thing I would do is I would create a separate pipelines for everything. If I want to deploy everything on production, then it would be a separate pipeline. And if I want to do it on dev, QA, or state, I would have a separate pipeline. And restricting another way, like if you have already done the setup and you want to restrict it, then you can use for approvals. There you can create a group of people through who only can approve. So what will happen is if your pipeline has like 10 stages and the 10 stages deployment to the production, it will ask for an approval over there. Then once you have to approve, then only it will go to the production. That's one way of restricting it.
Okay, is there can we use any if statement in the pipeline?
Yeah, I think
If else block.
yeah, I think they have a concept of ternary block over there, or ternary operator, through which it can make a choice between two things. But I have not implemented it, so I cannot throw more light on that.
Oh, okay, no issue. Okay, what is the strategy used for?
Branching
Strategy keyword. Yeah, no, not branching strategy. Strategy in terms of this pipeline. For example, there is a strategy keyword that is used in deploying the branches. Why it is used for?
uh, are you talking about the like blue green deployment or something?
Yeah, maybe we can consider that scenario. Or, for example, if we are deploying any Terraform code which has multiple modules, with respect to that, if you can.
Okay, I can explain the process that we use. I do not know the keyword strategy as of now, but the only thing I've heard is branching strategy, but I can just walk you through the stuff that we do. So we have three environments over here, dev, stage, and production. And we have three separate pipelines for it. And then the strategy that we use for creating is, the first thing is we build a container and push that Docker image to ECS. And from there, we make a call, and using that, we just check a Terraform plan through our pipelines only. And in that Terraform plan, it shows that what is going to be created, what is going to be changed, and what is going to be destroyed. And at that step itself, we check whether everything is all right or not, and then only we go for Terraform apply. And then in that Terraform apply, we already have one check over there. So people on that group, which I mentioned earlier, people on that group will go over there and click on it, and then the environment would be created or deployed. So that's the workflow that we use on a general basis.
Okay. Have you implemented SonarQube practices?
Yeah,
Have you
I have,
worked on
yes,
SonarQube?
SonarQube like from scratch. I have done everything. I have done on all three of them: Azure DevOps, AWS DevOps, and TeamCity Octopus with Jenkins. So the basic idea of is we have used the free edition. I mean, because it was free actually, open source. So I have not used. Sorry, we have not used the paid one. So all you have to do is you have to install in a system. It's a particular server because we do not want to create more load on that. We installed it. We created a project over there. I'll walk you through one by one, each one of them. So when you do from TeamCity, you just have to go there, create a project over there. It would give you a key. Use that key, and when you create a project, it will give you the commands as well. So use that command in as a script in your TeamCity, and then you can just trigger that build. It will do its stuff, own quality analysis, and then shows the data uh, uh, on the server, on the SonarQube server. When you do same thing with Azure DevOps, you have to create a service connection first because it needs to it needs to talk to that server in which it has installed. And then after that, whenever you create a project, for example, you have a Java project and go inside that, create, it will ask you what kind of project it is, Java, TypeScript, or C# something. It will give the command. So probably it will use Maven and Java for you. So you have to install Java in that system where it is running because it needs that. And then it will compile the project. It will produce a file, which is I think an XML file. You have to give the path for that. This XML file, after the analysis, will upload to the server, and within like 5-6 minutes you'd be able to see the details over there. So that's how SonarQube integration has been done.
Okay. Have you worked in Azure CLI command also? CLI commands?
I have worked on a bit on Azure CLI, but mostly on AWS CLI. But yeah, I think I can try to answer your questions.
Okay. I will ask a simple one. For example, we need to authenticate it to Azure CLI with the Azure account. Which command we will use? What is
Mm,
the command?
I'm not exactly sure of Azure, but we use AWS configure for our AWS part, and it will give us it asks us a few details like a key name and account name where you are creating it, and then it will pop up the configuration to the AWS page. And after that we have to apply and click OK, and then it authenticates us. I have not done on it Azure CLI, so I think this could be a bit of relatable if I would think.
Okay.
Maybe probably I think easy login I think is the first step, if I remember, and then it will redirect to a page. From there you have to enter your own details like credentials, and after that it gives a pop-up. You have to just approve it, and I think that it allows you to log in, and when you do easy login, uh, I think that's what I remember.
Okay. It's fine. It's fine. I think it's that's all from my side.